Welcome back. Wanted to touch on a couple of different things today, and we're going to start with sickness. Getting sick while you are over the road or while you are driving a truck. I'm not talking about hangover or anything like that. I'm talking about having an illness, sick days, things of that nature. And this stems from the fact that I was driving last Saturday and started to really not feel very good. I was on a load, one of our longer loads, as it were. So I ended up being about 5.5 hours from the Decatur terminal, not feeling very well. I was being held up actually by the shipper, so I got paid detention for that, which is, in that case, a good thing. But I had a pre-plan for the next day, and even at the end of detention, finally got unloaded 10 hours late, but would have had hours and been able to do the second load, but I felt terrible. Especially after having sat in a truck all day, which is not a fun thing to do. So wanted to touch on how do you handle things when you're sick, what can you do when you're sick, how does pay work when you're sick, do you get sick days, all of that stuff. So let's first of all go back to my situation. I had a noon appointment 5.5 hours away from my pickup. Got there, sat in the truck for a while, really started not feeling well. Had messaged in to dispatch saying, hey, obviously this load is not going to unload on time. In addition, I'm starting to not feel good. I might not be good for my pre-plan. And if you don't know what a pre-plan is, typically you'll have the load you are dispatched on, and then you will have, if you know what you're doing next, that is called a pre-plan. You are pre-planned for the next day or the next load or however it is. So I had a pre-plan load, which is a preloaded trailer, picking up at our Bellevue facility and then heading back towards Decatur after this delivery, which was out in Pennsylvania. So I mentioned I'm not sure I'm going to be able to be good on my pre-plan. I'm not feeling very well. I'll keep you up to date. Well, 10 hours go by and finally get unloaded. Well, your 10 hours happens and you get a 10-hour break. So I have completely fresh hours. I have a full 11 hours of driving, a full 14-hour clock, all of that. I've got plenty of time to make my next load, but I would have to drive to Bellevue, drive to where I needed to deliver, and then unload, and then drive, finally make it home. And at that point, it probably would have been around noon, and I would have been up for more than 24 hours, was not feeling well in the first place, and was starting to communicate with dispatch that this is probably not a good idea that I do that. So that's the first thing, and it goes back to one of the things that I've talked about many times, and that is communication. Communicating with dispatch and letting them know early instead of waiting until 10 p.m. when I finally finished unloading, that it's probably not going to work out. If you wait until 10 p.m., they're not going to be as excited about getting that load covered for you. And as you'll see, I am still recovering from, I ended up with bronchitis is what my problem was. But I missed out on that Sunday load. So, start with that. So, communicated, 10 p.m. rolls around, I'm empty, or actually, I think it was 9 o'clock, I started unloading, and I said, hey, I'm finally unloading, and they said, well, are you going to be good on the Sunday load or not? And I said, no, I had mentioned this isn't going to work out. So, if you start feeling sick, the earlier you communicate that with your fleet manager, or in that case, it was weekend dispatch. And again, there are people at Prime 24/7 that you can communicate with after business hours. It's called night dispatch or weekend dispatch. Communicate with them as soon as you know that there's a potential problem. And I knew as soon as I got there that day that I was not going to be unloaded on time. And I knew shortly after I got there that I had not felt great. I don't get sick very often. I'm not somebody who gets sick, a couple times a winter or 3, 4, 5 times a year. This is probably the first time in the last 5 years that I can think of that I have had to take time off. So early communication, and the earlier the better, especially if you have a pre-plan, that they'll need somebody else to cover that for you. So that's the first thing in terms of if you're out on the road, what do you need to do if you're starting to not feel well? In that case, I was under a load. Well, unless you're really, really sick, and when I say really, really sick, I'm talking about maybe you need to go to the emergency room sick, you're probably going to have to finish whatever load you are on, whatever load you are currently delivering. If you have time built in, if it's something that loads on a Monday and doesn't deliver until Thursday, and it's only a couple hours, a couple of days drive, you can stop en route. There are the company, the third party that Prime uses is a company called Concentra. They are all over the country. Concentra Health. Many of their facilities have truck parking. You are not obligated to use them. You do have to use them for DOT physicals. Prime requires that. You either have to have it done at a terminal or at a Concentra Health facility. But I mentioned the fact that they have truck parking, and that's one of the reasons that Prime uses them is, you need, when you're out on the road, you need to be able to stop in, and you can't always park at a truck stop and get a cab or an Uber or take public transit or what have you. So that's your first option. If you're not feeling well, truck parking at a spot like that. If you wake up in the morning and you are at a truck stop, especially near a large city, you may have other options besides driving to or finding a Concentra. You may take public transportation, you may take a cab, you may take an Uber or a Lyft if that's your thing, and you may be able to find a physician or get to an emergency room if it's that severe of a case that way. But that's going to be up to you. You're going to need to research, find out how do I get to, where do I go, maybe ask at a truck stop, if, like I said, if you're in that particular case. But it's going to be up to you to find how to get to some place to see a doctor. Now, as far as downtime, like I said, if you can do it while en route and still make your delivery on time, that's fine. If it is something like, in my case, I ended up with bronchitis, and I missed my Sunday load. I had a Monday load scheduled because I thought, okay, well, I took Sunday off. I'm sure I'll be better by Monday. Well, Monday I woke up, and that's when I finally decided to go to the doctor. Went to the walk-in clinic by where I live, and of course, at this point, I'm home because of what I do. If I were an over-the-road driver, I probably would have been parked somewhere and would have to either gone to a Concentra or gotten that Uber or cab to a walk-in clinic somewhere. But I was at home. I drove myself to a walk-in clinic and got my diagnosis of bronchitis and communicated. As a lease operator, you are an independent contractor. We do not have sick days. We do not have, you can only take X number, whether it be you can only take 5. It's not you accrue a certain number of sick days for the number you work. You do not have sick days. You do not have vacation days. You drive, you get paid. You don't drive, you don't get paid. So I ended up not working Sunday, not working Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and finally got back to driving on Thursday. So missed 4 days of driving, 4 days of potentially earning revenue. Like I said, I did have a load scheduled on Sunday, did have a load scheduled on Monday, did not do either of those. Communicated as best as I could with Fleet Manager Dispatch. Was not scheduled anything for Tuesday nor on Wednesday. Monday, and Prime is great. They understand that people get sick. So when I called in and said, hey, I have bronchitis, their question wasn't, do you have a doctor's note? It was, okay, when do you think you're going to be back driving? And I said, well, either Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how I feel. And I said, I will let you know tomorrow. And Tuesday I said, yep, I think I need one more day. and I stayed home on Wednesday and went back to driving on Thursday. So as a lease operator, that is how it's going to work. Company driver is really not much different than any company that you have worked for as a full-time employee. You will accrue sick time. You will accrue vacation time. And the vacation time people typically use for home time, you can use it however you want. You don't have to use it for home time. You can take a vacation to Hawaii, and when you say I need to put in a home counter, put it in for Los Angeles and hop on a plane, fly out to Hawaii. So that's how, and it's just like anything else. You accrue sick time the same way, and they may ask, in that particular case, as a company driver, they may ask for a note from the doctor saying that you actually were sick, and if you don't produce a note saying you're sick, they may say, okay, we gave you the time off, now since we can't prove that you were sick, you're going to have to use your vacation time instead of your sick leave time, which is something that happens out in the world as well. So it's no different really than vacation time to sick time for a lease operator. It's either you're driving and you get paid, or you're not driving and you don't get paid. And that's one of those things as a lease operator where you need to plan ahead. And that's one of those things where people get worried about leasing is, well, what happens if I get sick and have to take a week off, 4 days off, and I don't earn money over the course of X number of days? Well, since I did not drive Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of last week, I also missed Friday because I had a load cancel. So there were 4 days out of that last week's paycheck settlement that I did not drive. But I still made money last week. And I planned for the fluctuations in how much money I make. So being only paid minimum of $400 this pay period is not a big deal for me, considering I made $1,900 the previous week. So you have to plan for that. If you have a big check, big settlement as a lease operator, you can't say, well, great, let's go out and spend a bunch on a bunch of things, because you don't know what could happen in the following week. You could be sick. Following week, your truck could be in the shop. But you plan for those things. So I wanted to touch on what happens when you're sick. How do you deal with it when you're sick? And again, Concentra having truck parking is a huge bonus. And so that's what you do. But, if you're an over-the-road truck driver, if you don't have that ability to go home, you're going to end up laying in the back of your truck for those 4 days that I was at home. If I were over the road, I would have laid in the back of my truck. I would have on Monday gone to, a Concentra or some other walk-in clinic, gotten back in my truck and laid in the back of my truck for, 3 more days. It's just what it is, unless you want to pay for a hotel room. And that's your own money. You can certainly do that. So that's the number one topic for this particular video. I do want to make a couple of notes. First of all, hit 2,000 subscribers, and I am continually dumbfounded by the number of people who watch these videos, subscribe, like, comment. I try to, and I know I've said this before, I try to respond to as many of the comments as I possibly can. I know I miss some of them. There is something strange in the YouTube notification system where for some reason, I don't get notifications from every single comment that comes. So I apologize if I do not get back to you if you comment. But a massive thank you to every single one of you who have watched videos, liked videos, commented, and of course subscribed to have gotten me to the 2,000 subscriber plateau. Absolutely humbling. An even bigger thanks to those of you who have come to Prime after watching these videos, whether you have used my name or not as a reference. Obviously, I appreciate it if you do, but I'm not here to pressure anyone into putting my name on a dotted line somewhere. If you feel like you've gotten something out of these videos, go ahead and use my name. Again, it is the channel name, so I appreciate that. I do get a small... They changed the way they did the recruiting referral system, about 6 months ago now. You used to be able to make a lot of money doing referrals, and now it's not the same, and you don't make as much. And to be honest, in the 2 years, less than 2 years I've been doing videos, I only have 3 people who have officially, and the reason for that is I know that there are other people who have told me that they have used my name. There's some complicated process about if you don't put it on the very first time you apply, if you go back and put my name down, or if you put it down when you actually show at Prime, it doesn't count. It has to be the very first application. And you have to spell the name correctly, and neither here nor there. Like I said, I really don't care. It's nice to get a little bonus when somebody does come and uses my name, but otherwise, oh well. If you don't, I make these videos because it's my way to contribute. Final thing, and I've done this since I started making videos. Last year I took a baseball trip around the 4th of July. I am not taking any trips this year, but I will still be taking a couple of weeks off from uploading videos. Mid-July, I'll bring something back up. Just kind of I did it last summer. I did it at Christmas, Christmas and New Year's, so I'm going to do it again here. Just take a couple of weeks off to catch my breath and think of some other topics. So a massive thanks to everybody for watching, subscribing. I will see you in mid-July. I hope summer is treating you guys well. If you want to come to Prime, got the link right in the description. You can click on that, and hopefully we'll feel better by the time we come back from the 4th of July holiday. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to you in a few weeks.